Okay, the first part, just got to introduce yourself not as if we didn't know each other, but
Yeah.
you have to introduce yourself to me. We'll just go one at a time.
Okay, I'm Mark Moore. I'm the CEO of Whisper Aero. 32 years at NASA, both Ames and Langley, and then 4 years as an engineering director at Uber Elevate.
Cool. And I'm Ian. Ian Villa, COO and co-founder of Whisper. Met Mark at Uber Elevate. Before that, I was designing airplanes at Northrop Grumman.
Perfect. I know you guys for a while. I think, did I write the first story?
Yes,
you
Whisper?
did.
I think I did. So, and how long ago was that? Remind me.
2021.
2021.
July.
Okay. Okay, so you guys have been at this for a few years.
I think you wrote the first story about Uber Elevate, too.
Did I? That one eludes me. I've got a few firsts under my belt, but I remember this one. I think I'd been following you for quite a while and the work you would do at NASA, and you always seem to be publishing interesting ideas. And then, followed this journey. For people who don't know, tell us the basic idea behind Whisper.
Yeah, so Whisper is a next-generation propulsion company. We're delivering cleaner, quieter, more efficient thrust for air management. So that's things that move air on the ground, as well as air mobility, so everything that flies through the sky.
And when you guys started, I remember the idea was, we obviously had drones, had become a big consumer thing, and obviously all kinds of industrial use, and then these electric vertical takeoff lift vehicles they were half-formed ideas, but we could see them coming, that we were going to have these passenger vehicles. There was the thought that they might be flying over cities all the time and noisy. If I remember right, that was some of the initial idea that you guys were trying to address, was we see these things coming, we need to make them quieter and better.
Yeah, Uber Elevate really formed the foundation of Ian and my thoughts of what needed to be. At Uber Elevate, we were working with 10 different OEMs that were all developing eVTOL aircraft. And we were also doing drone delivery. So at Uber Elevate, for Uber Eats, we did the first Chicken McNugget deliveries.
Beyond visual line of sight in San Diego.
Yeah. And across all these experiences, especially as we went to different cities and talked to their planning departments and the city officials, nobody was quiet enough to really do what matters, which is scaled operations. Sure, you can do a few, but helicopters can do that also. If you really want to be able to be relevant to Uber-like transportation, you got to be flying all the time, whether you're delivering food or you're delivering people. And so it was all about being able to have that next technology amongst just amazing breakthroughs that are happening on batteries and other areas. Our breakthrough is in electric propulsion and how you generate thrust really, really quietly with the highest efficiency possible.
So the two of you are sitting around, all these people are coming in, they're pitching their vehicles, and you both have these, you went to Stanford and studied aeronautics?
Aeroastro, yeah.
Aeroastro. And so you both have experience, knowledge in this field, you're sitting around, and so I assume the two of you, your brains start percolating that maybe there's a better way to go about this.
My brain had been percolating for many years before this, because I was very much part of setting up the foundation for this. But yeah, I mean, at Uber Elevate, we were like building and designing the entire ecosystem and laying out the requirements and missions that all these aircraft would have to map into to make money, to be relevant as a comprehensive transportation solution. And we had a vehicle team that would actually help and work with these 10 different manufacturers. But nobody was doing what we really needed, which again was focused on getting rid of the complexity, getting rid of the noise, and getting to really low operating costs and high volume operations.
Well, one way to think about it is like when the DoD, they have a brand new aircraft program, they go out to industry and say like, who can sort of build an aircraft that fits our requirements? But internally, they usually also have a team that's crunching the numbers, that's doing this kind of like reverse engineering design work to verify whether or not the claims are true. So Mark set up this vehicle engineering team within Uber to do exactly that. We could, by nature of being a company and not the government, though, could take it a step further. And so rather than just being a objective observer, I think we could also take the next step and actually insert ourselves into the teams and help them accelerate their path to a flyable, demonstrable eVTOL prototype. And the other idea too is, we would have these ideas, maybe some patents. We could patent some of these ideas and then make that accessible to all of the developers and have these network effects for us as opposed to trying to stovepipe information too early. But, and that's why you're smiling, is because we knew that quieter was possible. And so Whisper was an interesting thing where we knew that the market and the ecosystem needed to be jump-started, but that there would always be a Gen 2. And while it's easy to, while you can fire start something and really gain momentum to get to scale, to get to relevance and really like mass adoption, you need technologies that enable that, right? Affordable, efficient, and quiet.
So we didn't know that we could be quieter.
Well, this is what
we
I
suspected.
Yeah,
this is what I want to talk about. I mean, even just the idea that quieter is possible. This is a big idea. It's a big claim. I wanted to talk about your background in particular and why you would even dream that you had something that would make sense here. I mean, tell us about what you did at NASA, just some of your background that would lead you on this path.
Yeah, my entire 32-year career at NASA was focused on powered lift aircraft, which are aircraft that can take off and land vertically or do extremely short takeoff, and developing new technologies that could fit into that. So the first aircraft that I worked on at NASA was called the QSRA, the Quiet Short Haul Research Aircraft, and phenomenal capabilities to be able to take off in really short distances and do so quietly. And that always stuck in my mind of, wow, this is where we need to be going. That technology in the 1980s was kind of ahead of its time. The propulsion side wasn't ready for the proof point that it accomplished for what's called upper surface blowing, being able to take the thrust of turbofan engines and push it onto the wing. What we've done is really take the best of this electric propulsion revolution that's happening, not just in the automotive world, but now with aircraft, to do what's absolutely critical to marry to other capabilities that achieve this robustness, this safety, this set of capabilities that you see with the Whisper Jet, which is to distribute. Instead of having a few big turbofans, all of a sudden electric technologies are scale independent and can spread out so that you can put them wherever they can most synergistically work with the different components of the aircraft, whether the wing, fuselage, or otherwise.
So you'd been doing hardcore research in these areas, and then as this is going along, there's these revolutions in electric motors, software, materials.
Yep.
And then venture capital gets interested in all these new types of vehicles. So time kind of caught up, the world caught up to some of your ideas and helped make some of these things possible.
The early years were a bit lonely, because you had the big aerospace that thought this was nonsense, and I just remember different efforts where go to the National Science Foundation and try to say, hey, this is a new area where there's just so much opportunity for distributed aviation services, where smaller aircraft can fill the needs of urban and regional travel. And, the powers that be exist not only in big corporations, but across government and even the military, and just a lot of resistance if you want to fundamentally change like transportation systems. So it took many, many years. I mean, half of my career at NASA was just building up a groundswell of support that the technologies were there, that the transportation vision was there. And it really all came together when I was able to get time with Travis at Uber as the CEO, and went in for a jam session one evening and said,
You
look
did
at
a jam session.
yeah, yeah, from like 6 o'clock in the evening until 11. It was Joe Ben Beavert, myself, and another NASA associate who were saying this is what's possible, and they ate it up.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they saw this potential of what could be, and got behind it, and then we wrote the white paper, which really was the genesis of urban air mobility.
I remember this. So you were. I remember people tell me about this guy Mark at Ames. He's got these kind of crazy ideas, and then I remember this moment when people like Joe Ben Beaver got interested in this. Larry Page, like some of the Silicon Valley money started.
Those were such exciting days.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege to work with Larry for over a year as his thoughts came together to it. Really some of the most fond memories of my career as the puzzle pieces started to come together across the technologies, the money, and really, I mean, that was 15 years ago, but we're getting really close.
Yeah.
I mean, doing something so big does not happen overnight. And so a lot of people may say, oh, well, yeah, it's been 15 years, or aren't they flying already? Are you kidding me? You look at the automobile industry.
Oh, sorry, the light just went out. That was
Oh.
such a good. It was just at the very end. Yeah.
So it was 2009 when the different pieces came together, where the technology had been incubated over 4 different concept to flight demonstrators that I had led at NASA, and VC money was starting to get really interested in aviation, and I mean, some of the best moments of my career were interacting with Larry Page and Sebastian Thrun, and everything sort of came from Larry stepping in and making these big investments, because once he does it, everybody else started piling in, and I give massive credit to Larry Page to making this happen.
Yeah. And you, as young engineer, you'd been at Stanford, you'd worked for Northrop Grumman on aircraft that I don't think we can talk about. And,
Not much.
And then end up at Uber, Elevate, and so obviously you guys, since I've known you, you've formed kind of like a kinship or a good, really good partnership.
He's like my second dad.
Yeah, and then you just start getting excited that to help also, there's like all these ideas bubbling up and you can help make them become real.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think our paths almost crossed multiple times. At Stanford, one of my professors was Alon Crow, who eventually was the
part of
CEO
all
of
this.
Z.
Yeah.
And you guys were both talking to
He was my
Larry.
advisor too.
Yeah, so go figure. And then at Northrop, there was actually one program in particular where I was on the industry side. Mark was a SME, subject matter expert, on the government side, but we never met up. I was, behind a desk somewhere doing a bunch of analysis, and then he was looking at it on the other side.
And the funny thing, that was for a DARPA program called Great Horned Owl, which was all about trying to make really quiet UAVs.
Okay.
So
here we are.
Yeah. So eventually, I had seen the early stages where your papers were coming out. Alon was working on this. You actually revealed the first Zero prototype in a parking space during one of the classes I was in, and I could just see it. I was waiting for like this inflection curve, and then as soon as the white paper came out, and there was this open position, like PM.
No, there was no open position. You just came in and like, I want to do this. And I remember, so I made him do a jam session. And it's like, okay, how do you design this eVTOL? And he did a really good job of laying it out, because eVTOL didn't even really exist when you did that jam. So, but he was so persistent. It was just like, I'm going to get hired here. I'm going to get hired. It's like, okay. And I mean, that's the thing. Ian is tenacious. He's the hardest worker on the planet. Just execute, and get what needs to be done completed.
And you got, okay, so this is all kind of coming together at Uber. Then you guys decide to head off, do your own venture together. You're in California at the beginning, and then we end up in Tennessee. I know we're going to get to see this unusual setup where the company founded, but you know, I don't know that Tennessee would be the first choice for a lot of people to start this kind of company.
We were looking around.
Yeah.
I mean, we looked at like laundromats in the Mission and garage spaces in SF, in places in Austin and all over. But Mark found a pretty screaming deal here. It's hard to say.
Well, and COVID was just starting up, and it was like, okay, if we do this in San Francisco, which is what, you know, all the VCs want you to be close to them. So we were talking to investors, and they were like, yeah, do it here. The talent pool is here. And we were like, there's other places that could be better.
Yeah.
And so managed to find this resort, which was gorgeous lake on one side and a great small airport on the other side, and took my Uber stock and made a leap of faith, and we just all jumped in and moved right into it, families and all, and lived, worked, played together for 2 years there, putting the foundation of the technology in place. And those were great and exciting days where the team could have like gotten totally sick of each other. But instead, the opposite thing happened. We bonded, and
Because you had a electric engine commune, basically.
well, and that's the thing. We actually interviewed this one person in the early days, and his wife was like, "This looks like a commune to me," and he didn't get hired. And then he saw all of our progress, and he came back and he's like, "I'd really like another chance at this
Like
job."
to join the cult, please.
And yes, and so he's now working at the company, and his wife is like, "Oh, okay, this is not so strange."
Yeah.
Well, the best startups are cults.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the mentality that seems to make them successful. I mean, I came to visit. It felt more like a family than a cult. I think it was just a bunch of engineers working all night and then having shared dinners together and all kind of living together.
I mean, we had a garden, a chicken coop. People would just literally wake up at 6 a.m., go into the office, take a break, play beach volleyball, have a bonfire at night, have a crazy idea, go back.
Yeah, there was no commuting, no bills, no distractions. And it really did work fabulously.
Well, because like the startup house is a thing. Well, we've had these hacker houses and communal houses in the Bay Area forever. But I was hanging out with a bunch of VCs and entrepreneurs, and I should have remembered you guys. They're like, people are doing these startup houses. I wonder how big that can scale and still be effective. But everybody doesn't have a resort at their disposal. If you're just in some giant Airbnb,
but they should think about it. It's a really good idea.
I mean, we were like 20 people with a few folks remote. That was kind of like the Tennessee Aerospace Hacker House.
Yeah. Okay. And then some of this we get to show, and then some of it, the exact details, I know you guys still don't fully want shown on camera, but how can we let's describe, sometimes it's called a propulsor, an engine, a fan, the heart of what you guys have invented that's making these things possible.
I'll start and then you jump in. Really, the sort of the beauty of the design is we went all the way back to first principles and questioned, how do you take electric motors and get the best way to get thrust out of them to achieve these core objectives of ultra quiet and high speed efficient. And it really led us to several theses that needed to be proved out, and really did not look like normal ducted fan systems. And specifically, if you really want to be quiet, you have to go to low tip speeds. And if you go to low tip speeds, that's kind of a weird place to be for electric motors because they like to spin really fast. They're more like turbines. And you don't want to put a gearbox in there because that doubles the weight of the electric motors and adds complexity that you don't want. So there really was this first principle build-up to get to a fan system and the associated parts and components of that electric ducted fan that are very, very different than what anyone has ever done before.
Yeah, if we're going to talk maybe nomenclature for a bit, we started with propulsor because early days we didn't want people to know we were working on electric ducted fans. Today we sort of use propulsor, electric ducted fan, thruster, and even electric engine interchangeably. But at its core, it is this high blade count electric ducted fan that's able to be compact and still have extremely high, over 90% fan efficiency, no matter if you're 4 inches or 4 feet. And that's our trick to being able to integrate into what we call jet foils on the leading edge of a wing to get this upper surface blowing.
You're just sucking air in and funneling it out the other side, right? And this
nice but it's a lot
stream.
more complex than that.
So no, but I mean, I want to kind of build up a little bit. I mean, that's the basic idea.
Yeah. So actually, you want a funny story on this?
Yes, I do.
Is I actually had the core idea for this a long time ago. And it was like, man, if you really want to be quiet, you're going to be minimizing the impulse of each blade. Because if you have big blades, that's a big pressure delta and an impulse. And acoustics is all about what size pressure or pulse is traveling through the air. So actually, I discussed this with actually Joe Ben Beavert, and I said, I want to build this fan system that has just this insane number of blades and has really low tip speed and push the any tonal noise, just make it disappear into the ultrasonic and just have broadband noise. And I was still at NASA in those days, and pretty free with my ideas. And a month later, I had another call with Joe Ben. He said, that idea of yours, it sucked. We went ahead and built it, and the blades were just flopping all over together, and the efficiency was bad, the noise was bad. I'm like, well, how exactly did you build it? And it's like, we made this propeller and put it in a duct, and it had all these blades. I'm like, good thing I didn't tell you the other part, which is all those blades need to have a circumference, a rim around them to connect them so that all those blades are essentially like a bicycle wheel rim. And each blade is a spoke on that. And as you spin it, that rim gets centrifugally stiffened. And those blades are absolutely precisely kept in the same position. And that is one of the key ingredients to being able to do this high blade count, low tip speed solution, which is at the core of eliminating the tip vortices, being able to have laminar flow over the upper and lower surface because it's not moving around and shaking. It's this circumference, this rim around all the blades is the glue that keeps this idea together. But then we've overlaid about 4 other technologies into it that make this system really the most impressive propulsor that I've ever seen anyone do.
Without saying tip speed or laminar flow, just how can we explain, is there a way to explain why putting more blades and putting this ring around them, why that starts to take away the sound?
See if you can do a better job. I mean, it really, what it is.
The light went out.
Yeah.
Need some rollerblades.
I think the sensor's on that exit sign.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe not.
Good.
Simpler way.
No, and the way you describe is fine. I was just,
Yeah.
if there's another, I just want to make sure everybody understands without using, industry terms they might not know. And so when I look at what you guys have made, the thing that stands out is there's you see right away, there's lots of small blades and that they're connected on this rim. In my head, I'm just like, well, how does that reduce the sound?
Yeah. So when you decompose where sound comes from, one of the biggest sources for fans or propellers are the tip vortices from each blade. That is, the blade has high pressure on one side, low pressure on the other side. So naturally, the air wants to try to whip around to get from the high pressure side to the low pressure side. So every single, whether it's a propeller or a fan blade, the air's trying to come around really fast. And every tip of each blade has a tornado spinning off of it.
And then it's vibrating?
And that hits the blade behind it, which causes it to be in this tornado. And so the whole blades, all the blades start to vibrate. You can't see this visually as they spin around, but you get into very turbulent, chaotic flow. And the tips are where most of the thrust is being made because they're spinning faster than the inboard portion. So getting rid of those tip vortices is like the first thing that you want to do to make a quiet propulsor.
And that's mostly through fixing it on that rim, or?
It's by having that rim that's rotating with it. So that there literally are no tip vortices created. The loading goes across the blade and carries around onto the rim. And then with the next blade and the next blade. So that's a really important key first step. But then another key element of noise is called thickness noise. And that is purely how big the blade is and the volume of air being displaced as it has to go around this blade volume. So as you go to really high blade counts, your volume goes to almost nothing. These are really thin blades that actually even 5-10 years ago, you couldn't even manufacture the blades that we're making today.
Because of materials?
Because of the precision, because they're so small. It's a combination of materials.
Even the design, to get the right designs.
So like computer-aided design and then computer-aided cutting machines that are...
So we got rid of tip vortex noise. We got rid of blade thickness noise. And then it's all about whether you can get rid of tones. Because the human ear has evolved where we pick up tones really, really well, especially from 1 kilohertz to about 8 kilohertz. The human ear is just optimized for that. So once we reduced the noise signatures from the major sources, it was, what if we could take the remaining tones and shift them above what humans can hear into the ultrasonic? And so that requires this combination of rotational speed and number of blades that accomplishes this. So you get rid of those tones and all you're left with is broadband noise, which is whoosh, a background noise level that the human ear is not optimized to hear.
And we hear it all the time. I mean, anyone, when a drone comes by, it's got that annoying hum. Hum. And so this was just a very conscious effort to switch out of that zone and go somewhere that's more pleasant.
Right.
Exactly. And another element of the noise is the turbulent boundary layer that's shed from each blade. So by being able to have those blades really, really stiff and exactly keeping their shape, you're able to have laminar flow on both the upper and lower surface, and especially when it's in a cascade of blades where the pressure field of one blade is interacting with the other blade, then you can really just get rid of that turbulent air and have it very smooth, which minimizes the thickness of that boundary layer and the noise created from it.
Okay.
So you asked for a simple explanation, and I actually went into
deeper,
way deeper.
I feel like I understand it better now, though. So that all helped. And
if you want,
maybe Ian needs.
I'll give you the super simple one. So you've flown on a 737 before, and you look out the wing. There's a wing and there's a wingtip. Each of our blades is almost like a wing. And if you imagine having a bunch of these wings together with a wingtip, all those tips form a shroud.
Okay.
And so the same way that wingtip adds efficiency to the flight of that aircraft, the combination of those tips creating a shroud improves the efficiency of the overall fan.
And maybe you answered this already on the materials and the computing part, but yeah, like why didn't somebody try this before?
I know it seems like a pretty simple idea, and that's where the team really deserves credit. I mean, this was a little bit of a crazy idea because normally when you're spinning propellers or fans, you spin them as fast as you can get away with to get as much performance out of them. So normal tip speeds for a propeller are 700 to 800 feet per second. For ducted fans, it's more like 1,000 to 1,100 feet per second. We spin at below 300 feet per second.
Wow, okay.
So really slow. And so because of that, you can do crazy things like put a hoop around all these blades without the centrifugal force ripping it apart. If you try to do this at normal tip speeds, that hoop would just disintegrate and everything would be ripped into shreds. So it really was this rethinking fundamentally from first principles of what our objectives were to do something that was crazy and actually somewhat obvious, but is completely novel in the field.
Is there a trade-off though when you have to go down to the lower speeds?
Typically, there's penalties. Like with propellers, the quietest propellers are low tip speed propellers. They take a performance penalty. But because of the way that we've been able to integrate this across, again, several different layers of innovation, we get an efficiency improvement, especially because we keep the flow laminar, which is a much lower drag on the blades themselves. Mm-hmm. Any propeller that you see, they're fully turbulent. And the drag is essentially on the order of almost twice as much as a blade that has laminar flow across it. And being able to make sure that flow is very robust in keeping laminar flow is key, so that even if there's insects or other particulates that are present, it's so robust of a pressure field that it keeps this very, very low drag. So we achieve an efficiency improvement by going to low tip speeds, while everyone else actually has performance penalties associated with it.
Okay. And I think first principles is one piece of it. The other part is just the perspective. Like when most people think about low tip speed and they think about designing a propulsion system, the old sort of assumptions are, okay, you're going to minimize the amount of propulsion systems because you want to minimize the complexity, you want to minimize the cost. But when you're starting from a basis of we want these to be electric because we know electric can hit higher efficiencies, lower cost curves, and we know that we want to be distributed because we've got lower part counts, higher commonality across each of these, and distribution actually helps us, then you're biased towards starting to look at smaller fans initially. And those smaller fans, you can move at higher RPMs with an electric motor and still achieve low tip speed. That kind of starting perspective is not something that someone from, the old guard at a Rolls-Royce or a Pratt & Whitney would, begin with.
Yeah. Hang on one sec. He's adjusting.
Okay, go ahead.
Even just from the name of the company, I know sound was a focus, but then when we've been talking and seeing some of the products, you get this efficiency gains, the thrust coming off turns out to be pure, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it.
Very clean.
Very clean. There we go. And so were those all things you were hoping for, or that you also thought would come with this design?
We knew they needed to be present to achieve our goals.
Okay.
And again, all of this goes to a top level goal of understanding noise is the barrier to scale across actually the discovery we had is that's not just about aviation. If you really want to do great in the world, whether it's for ventilation fans or leaf blowers, noise is a key barrier and people, especially as the world gets more and more pushed together into constrained spaces, noise is a real problem. And so for us, being able to solve that and focus on it from the beginning is something that I really haven't seen anyone else doing.
And on that point, there's
Speaking of noise, can you kind of like wiggle around and try and get the creaks out of the chair?
There we go.
there we go.
Thank you.
To that point, the oh wait, I forgot. Where was I going to go?
Whisper
Yeah,
company.
no, the noise. Oh, right. No, I'm back where I need to be. To that end, I mean, I know you guys are. You probably want to see the eVTOL industry and all these vehicles rise to some degree, but you are basically betting that this first round of stuff that we're seeing coming out have made a mistake, and that
It's not a mistake. It's just a necessary step. Like how many people drive Roadsters versus Model 3s?
right, so this had to be done, but then this whole company really though is a bet that we're going to do the next version way
Yeah.
better, and that it's also a bet that okay, so maybe these vehicles go and they do some flights and we know that this stuff works, but your thesis was that cities would not tolerate thousands upon thousands of these current designs
Yes.
because of the noise.
We kind of knew that from having talked to many cities.
And run the analysis.
We were deep into discussions with Los Angeles, Dallas, San Diego,
New York.
New York. They were pushing back and essentially saying, you're going to have to map into conforming land use zoning. And because cities have residential areas, industrial areas, and commercial areas. And if you want to do frequent operations, you're going to have to map into those noise constraints and not be a noisy neighbor.
Well, and you can kind of see how our perspective was colored by Uber. Like we have limited mobility bandwidth on the ground. So if you buy into the thesis that we as humans are going to move more to be more productive, to do more things, naturally we need to fly. And if you believe that there's this future where we need to fly more often, and that people today are already annoyed by the kinds of flights that happen with these more louder aircraft, then it's kind of plain and simple. You need quieter aircraft.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, how quiet is quiet enough? And that's what we were able to go compute and analyze and rigorously test while at Uber.
And so you start out and you're developing this in the R&D first at the resort, and then as you expand, facilities like this, and you start to see that this technology can be applied elsewhere. Tell me like the full gamut of products that you guys are looking at this particular moment.
Yeah, I mean, on the air management side, the first product out is going to be a leaf blower. Actually, we've been looking at leaf blowers at all different classes, whether it's for your prosumer or professional landscapers. We've been doing some work with NASA, looking at quiet space fans for HVAC systems in spacecraft. But turns out that those fans can also be used for stovetops and hand dryers and hair dryers and other kinds of HVAC or even computer cooling solutions. And then on the air mobility side, that's where it's a lot more straightforward. You have these same technologies and these same low-cost innovations we're taking from the air management side, but applying them towards air mobility. So you can get these low-cost thrusters for small drones. You can get these low-cost electric engines for much larger aircraft, even things that are not just drones, but could actually carry people, and then eventually move into this world where now people can actually move 100 miles every single day, way faster than they would on a car. 100-mile trip goes from 1 hour to 30 minutes to 15 minutes.
Yeah, and the progression is, well, people are annoyed by the drones already, and then we have the eVTOL stuff coming where people are hoping to carry 4 or 6 people around to ease commutes, move people around faster, and then but you guys also are thinking, I mean, this could go into mainstream commercial planes at some point too,
We
right?
were thinking that, but we didn't know if we could do it because we weren't certain how low cost we could make this new technology. And it was in the second and third year where we really push that, and we're able to show what are now fans that are made with pressure injection molded processes and new materials for those processes. And we have proven just how quiet, not just how quiet, but how low cost these can be, so that this technology is highly relevant to all these commercial markets, to being able to make hundreds of thousands of drones inexpensively, that also have this wonderful characteristic is there's no exposed blades. So it's not just quiet and affordable.
You get to keep your fingertips.
Exactly. It's
Pretty important.
It's safer.
I like my fingers.
And especially relating to the redundancy question, because we have this scale and invariant technology that's efficient at any size and has a great power to weight at any size, now you can distribute it. So you have this wonderful redundancy. So from the safety perspective, not only are there no exposed blades, but there's no critical parts, because you have this high level of redundancy inherently built in to the aircraft that you're developing.
Then the next question is the journalist question, and the public question. I think everyone always wants to know when. So what could we expect to see first, and why isn't this in drones today?
Yeah, so we're definitely taking this crawl, walk, run approach. For the last 4 years, we really had to nail the R&D, and we wanted to make sure that we could have something that was not only good as a one-off demonstration, but actually we can go manufacture and produce with high quality. So the first product we go out to market with is this leaf blower that'll be releasing next year. The next thing that we're going to embark on is actually these air mobility efforts that are being funded by the Air Force. So we're going to take these larger thrusters that we've been testing on the ground. We've taken some to military test ranges. We're going to actually fly it on a glider and get our first...
This year.
This year.
Yes.
This is great. Thanks. This year, we're going to take our first airborne measurements, acoustic, performance, here in Tennessee before, again, we take it out to a DoD range. And then we're going to increasingly stick a larger and larger arrays of these 80-pound thrust propulsors that we've built and stick them onto a 1,300-pound drone, and then eventually a retrofitted 10,000-pound aircraft that's optionally manned to show crawl, walk, run, how we go from something that we can manufacture at scale to we can build and fly, to we can build, fly, and integrate on bigger systems, to we can build, fly, integrate on bigger systems with people on it. And across that arc, we think in the next 4 years, we're going to have all these systems flying. And now, at least on the air mobility side, we'll be able to start moving into sort of a production motion, certification motion, whereas on the air management side, we would have had many years actually producing these at scale, licensing the technologies to other companies that want to take this to market. And then on the air management side, actually starting with a dev kit model that allows others to be empowered and design just like us to make really great products and then sell more of these propulsors before then we apply those dev kits on the air mobility side and do something similar.
You guys don't want to make all these vehicles yourselves. You want to be arms supplier, more or less. You want to supply engines and propulsion to whoever wants one. And we should think of Whisper as like a new age propulsion engine company.
Yep. Actually, not just propulsion, but also propulsion integration. It's as important how you integrate this new propulsion technology as the propulsors themselves. And so that's where the business model actually, has a little bit of a challenge, because we have a dependency to work with these airframers.
And they go slow. It's
they're most airframers are very conventional and conservative. And we require, with this new technology, that they get out of the box and integrate in new, wonderful ways that are not what they're used to. And that's why it's so important with this Air Force Strat 5 funding that we are getting the first validated full-scale demonstrators, not because we want to be an aircraft company, but because we have to prove it to them.
But it's a super hard pitch, because they're like the most conservative companies. They're making massive multi-million-dollar bets on their future craft. You have to get in the design.
Yep.
15 years before this thing might actually see the light of day. And so, yeah, I mean,
It's going to happen a lot faster than that. And remember, that's why we have this dual use approach right from the beginning to build a revenue basis through commercial and industrial products. And then with the DoD that doesn't have the same fundamental barriers to market that civil aviation has, especially at the smaller drone size.
just fix the light real quick. It was thankful. It just got us at the very end of that bite. That's nice.
Well, there's two other points.
Yeah. Do it.
I just think, look, we knew from the beginning getting into the civil aviation market is a long road. And I mean, that's why you see, I mean, Joby's been doing this for 10 years already, and they have several more years before they're going to be in the U.S. civil aviation airspace as a product. This is why it's absolutely core to build a revenue foundation that's first with commercial and industrial products, then with DoD applications, and especially at smaller drones, there aren't the same barriers to market as with people carrying civil aviation products. So it's not just about having great technologies. It's about understanding the users and their needs and building a revenue foundation where the market entry points are easier and the regulatory barriers are easier, and having this evolution of capabilities. And for us, it's like, we don't care about being first. It's like, great. Let Joby and Archer be the first ones to get through certifying electric aircraft. We want to be that fast follow.
Yeah.
And I think there's like two major customer sets, at least on the air mobility side. From an airframer perspective, you're either the old guard, and to your point, like, takes a long time. That means that they have a heavy emphasis on and burden of proof on getting things flown. And so us getting these demonstrators flying actually means a whole lot to that old guard. The other group is sort of all these newer startups, or no longer startups, but have moved into this electric aviation space and know how to move fast, but have tied their wagon to their first horse. So until they can actually get past this first set of certification for the first aircraft, they're not ready to bite off Gen 2. And so again, if we have these demonstrators ready as they start planning for Gen 2, as they complete the Gen 1 certification, we're in a great position to be able to say, hey, this already works. Why don't you design around this, as opposed to just going straight to the drawing board all over again.
And the thing we haven't announced is we're not in this full-scale vehicle development program by ourselves. So we have two airframers who are already all in with us. So we have proof points that they are becoming ready to get to these next products that are transformational in their capabilities.
What were their names again?
Yeah. You think you're going to get that out of me? We're not ready to announce that yet, but we could not be more excited about who they are and what they've done in the past. They bring massive credibility, especially to a small startup like us.
Could they talk about it and we could not use it if you're not ready to announce when this comes out, or?
We would be shocked.
Yeah. We can't.
That's why we use code names. If you've seen us, talking, we say, "Oh, well, yeah. What about Hammerhead? What about Swordfish?" Those aren't real companies. Yeah.
They. I think it's gonna be.
It's gonna be a
2
while.
years away.
Okay.
Yeah.
For one of them. At
Yeah.
least.
We'll come back.
Yeah. I wouldn't make bets that it's Boeing.
Yeah.
Okay, we've eliminated one.
But I think highly of them, so that's not a detraction. It's just, look, Boeing has sort of chosen their investments already. So
Yeah.
this is what Ian was relating to. Some have made their first bets, and they've got to follow those through. Others have been on the sidelines looking for the right opportunity or doing their own investigations. but not necessarily with the intent to take their efforts to product, but to understand the technology, which is very, very wise. But, Boeing is quite far along with Whisk, and more power to them.
Yeah.
Try to make that work.
So with the,
For this plane.
we are at an airport.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
There's noisy planes.
And noise is really an issue, huh?
With the, for the Defense Department, you could see, obviously, we want quiet drones, aircraft for all kinds of reasons, right? You could do better reconnaissance.
Closer with lower cost optics that can have more mission flexibility to not be in the clouds. Being up close, that close proximity operations is a key enabler across a number of missions that can't be done currently.
Well, in that all makes sense. And then what I was just wondering is the U.S. drone companies on the military applications, some of the stuff. Now we have motorcycles, so they with the U.S. drone companies, some of the technology is impressive. On the consumer, more industrial front, it strikes me that we're really behind China and what they're doing. This seems like an innovation where the U.S. could have something that China doesn't. And this is not to say that China just copies things these days, because they innovate a lot. But this is something, I was just wondering how hard this might be. I know you have patents here, but how worried are you about this actually giving the U.S. an edge versus other countries being able to see what you've done and mimic it?
We're worried, and that's why we take a lot of protective measures. We don't have any parts produced in China. We don't allow that, especially because we want to be highly relevant to the DoD U.S. Supplier value chain.
But even just knowing this idea now that you guys have proven out that you can use a large number of these smaller...
It's not just about, patents are a great defensive moat. It's about keeping the pace of acceleration and having processes. We have a lot of unique build processes that are trade secrets that aren't in our patents. So, part of that, being careful, is making sure you retain employees who have that wealth of information. And that's why we share equity with every single employee. And we have an amazing retention rate. So we've only had a few employees leave us because those employees are believers in what we're doing, and we intend to keep them happy and being experts at this new unique propulsion technology.
But there's an approach aspect to this too,
Yeah.
right? So, clearly China, and specifically DJI, has done really great in this Group 1, Group 2 drone space, so below 55 pounds. But I think there's this whole new world of Group 3, 4, and 5 that is just starting to unlock, right? You see Anduril and General Atomics with CCA. That's a very large drone. You're seeing a lot more of these unmanned systems that are above 55 pounds. And for a very long time, what's considered Group 3 and Group 4, so threshold Group 3 is about 1,300 pounds. Group 4 is above that with some reduced capability. That realm was really hard to unlock. You don't really have good, turbines in that space, power plants, propulsion. And what we've done here is effectively unlocked propulsion that works in that area. How you actually build out the full powertrain and effectively integrate these systems properly, I think the rest of the world is still trying to figure out. And again, we're ahead of the curve here, and we're moving forward with Air Force customers and many other folks within the DoD that want to take a bet on this and actually secure America's advantage in that space.
Again, there's layers to this technology. It's not just about patents. It's about the fact that, we're still at the beginning of this. We're going to be able to make our propulsors even better over the next several years in terms of noise and efficiency. So that fear is a good thing. And hunger is a good thing. That's what differentiates us from big companies, right? Is we can move fast. We have to keep moving and accelerating so that everyone else is left behind us. And that's why we don't want to become an airframer. If you look at the companies that are doing that, they're in certification hell and have been for many years. We want to stay focused on our prize while working with others who have the great supply chains, certification groups, and logistics and support teams. We have to stay focused where we've innovated.
I remember when I first wrote about you guys, I feel like people were like, oh, whatever, we'll see if they can do that. That sounds it seems unlikely that somebody's figured out like a whole, an engine that people hadn't thought of before. We've been at this for like 100 years, or at least like 60, 70. And then, I've been coming here for a couple of years. It's like you don't have to be a genius to tell that it's quieter than the competing stuff. That part comes through very clearly. I think when I see stuff like these futuristic designs, like in my head, I'm like, wow, that looks cool. I've seen what you guys can do. I'm sure I think there is still like some element of skepticism, right?
And healthy skepticism is a good thing. We still have a lot to prove, but I mean, we have executed what we said we would do on time with the resources that we have available. So we have built up an absolutely solid track record, and the next 4 years are where it all comes together in full-scale aircraft that have transformational capabilities that others are going to want, for sure.
I mean, people want to see us fly. So the target now is, how close can we get to an aircraft flying almost every 12 months?
And then, okay, so I give you guys full marks for every time the proof is in the pudding. It's worked. I mean, I want to see this stuff fly too, because I think when you have the posters, especially of like commercial aircraft with these totally...
That's a ways off.
I know it's a ways off, but it's like, in my head, I'm like, is that realistic, or is that just your aspirational view? Do you actually think lots of planes will be...
Yes.
Do you think this is where we will head?
I think you're going to see... Look, single disciplinary innovation is kind of done. Well, it's not done. It's just flattened off. The real exciting opportunities are in more complex designs. Doesn't mean more complex aircraft. More complex designs that are multidisciplinary in nature, where you create this 1 + 1 = 3, instead of having parts and pieces. Like you look at a current jet aircraft, but if you look at current jet aircraft today, the engines do propulsion, the wing does lift, the tail does control. It's like it's all separated. What we're doing is bringing all of those functionalities together to be far more effective.
This is what I mean, though. It's like, it seems like a great idea that it's like, is this too good to be true? It seems crazy that you guys are... It reminds me of, it's almost like when SpaceX was doing the reusable rockets, because you had everybody pretty much on this other camp that's like, first of all, I don't think you can do that. If you can, it's not even that good of an idea. The math doesn't really check out. It's still going to be really expensive. And then once they did it and started to prove it out, which took years, they just owned the entire industry, and flipped it on its head.
That's the goal. That's literally the goal.
Yeah, it's like,
right.
let
but
them
like,
stay
this doesn't
skeptical.
happen very often, right? So
agreed, and it takes a lot of work and quite a bit of money, but it's let them stay skeptical.
Yeah.
We have our proof, and we have fantastic investors backing us up that have seen these proof points. It just lets us have a bigger green field to patent and innovate, with them being left 5 to 10 years behind us.
And then, because the claim you're making, or when we look at these aircraft, it is what you said. This is not just the engine. You're talking about, because it's being built into the wing, you're rethinking really like how a plane functions and is...
That's
like
the future of everything.
Yeah.
And this is still why AI is kind of scary, because it's going to be able to figure out these very complex, multifunctional things, probably in better ways than our minds are constructed to remain as disciplinary experts. I mean, this is why Boeing and big corporations are invalidated. They build up great disciplinary expertise that are each in their domain. And those become fences. And you really need a small company that doesn't have those processes and encumberments where those different innovation pieces become tightly linked. And you don't know what you can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, I've asked all my big questions. I'll just ask a couple more, and then I think we're on the home stretch. Because when we do go back to all the demo stuff, we'll do the deep dives on. It'll be great.
Sure.
Yeah, to thread all this in. I don't know. I've always liked you guys' relationship. I mean, it's an interesting tandem. You know, like often, if I can be so bold, it's usually two kids coming out of a college dorm. You know what I mean? I think you know where I'm going without me commenting on anyone's age or anything like that.
Look, I knew I wanted to do this with Ian from almost the day that I met him. It's just, he has a wonderful personality and just an amazing ability to execute. Those aren't my strengths. So I don't have the amazing personality. I tend to be quite opinionated and transparent and more visionary. So we complement each other quite well.
That's a balance. I mean, I would say like Mark's extremely visionary, and you need a matched vision with execution to get to these proof points that you're talking about. It's like, how do you get to a SpaceX proof point? You have a visionary, and then you've got someone who actually can execute and rally the troops.
But then sometimes the visionary, I don't think this is you did amazing stuff at NASA, but I think sometimes you'd come out with ideas and people would question them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're buying into the visionary who's on the edge that some people are saying you're too unconventional, but obviously you wanted to take that bet.
Well, I believe in it.
Yeah.
I think if I couldn't suss it out myself, then I wouldn't necessarily choose that to execute.
Yeah.
But even during my jam session, we were thinking the same way. One of the big things out of the jam was like, do you use landing gear or skids for an eVTOL? And the simple answer is like, if you believe in a safe solution and you want to have all of these plan for the worst case scenario, you keep the gear. It doesn't matter how much weight you save. Safety matters. And us syncing up on that for my first jam was just kind of a sign that we could kind of think through things similarly. And that those kind of instances happened again and again and again. And I think my ability to see the way that like you're viewing the tech and the way that you could see how I wanted to approach executing these things came together in a really strong way for us to actually make Whisper happen.
And then as the company's grown, you guys have set up an office in Nashville too. How's the Nashville dating scene versus the Silicon Valley? You've made this trade-off. You gave up the Valley to come out here.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's a great question. So Nashville to Crossville, I've had more success dating in Nashville than Crossville.
Well, there's only 6,000 people in Crossville?
It's true. I don't know. I've also currently I'm dating someone in San Francisco, so go figure. Okay. But I have gone on a bunch of dates in Nashville.
Okay.
It's a great scene. Music City is a great scene.
So you just moved and kept dating in San Francisco.
That one, it sort of happened, but everything's clicking, so.
And just comparing culture.
Culture is big for us.
Yeah, comparing culture of the Bay Area versus doing a startup in Tennessee, any top tips or pros and cons?
I think here you have a place where, folks appreciate their downtime. You go to the Bay and a lot of times your conversations are like, what are you building? What are you doing? You meet someone for the first time, it's like, what do you do? Tell me what you're working on. Here, you get a lot more different experiences, musicians, people in the food industry, people in health. And I think, again, innovation happens at these crossroads of different disciplines. Having all those different conversations actually helps us contextualize our technology. So that's pretty awesome. I think also when we think about like the culture of it and how do you actually structure a hardware company for success, you can start a really awesome design team in California. But when you go and manufacture, oftentimes these companies find other locations to set up, whether that's Ohio or Atlanta, Georgia, or somewhere in Texas. I think for us, just taking the bet and going to Tennessee first, a state where there's a lot of industry and manufacturing to begin with, sure, we wouldn't have that maybe lab setting that a lot of engineers, at least in the Valley, are used to. But when we go to scale up manufacturing, as we've started to go do, there isn't this huge weird culture shift. You don't have these weird kind of like butting of heads between, West Coast versus some other manufacturing facility. It all is just more aligned, more like gelling in place. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing for us as we continue to grow and scale and build up these demonstrators.
Yeah. Okay. Questions from the peanut gallery? You've changed the sound to make it more pleasing to humans. I'm sure anyone watching this is immediately going to be picturing dogs barking from these drones flying overhead. What can hear the sound that the Whisper engines are
This
producing?
is one of the reasons why we did our initial testing, and it always had to be at like 3 a.m, so the background noise level was low because we're really quiet.
Cicadas were sleeping.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally,
They
yeah.
slept
Everything has
through
to
the
be.
test.
They turns out they sleep between 3 and 5 a.m.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's perfect time window.
We love our dogs, but we brought them out to see their reaction, and they really didn't have any reaction. They just laid down next to it. So
Do we know, is there a frequency that you
There
guys
is.
are at that, but what types of things can hear that?
So we've actually done additional studies as we've grown for dogs, birds, cats, and even fish. And there's literature out there where you can look at their hearing curves, the same way that humans have a hearing curve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, scientists, biologists have dissected, their ears and figured out where they hear best. Where we're moving the tones, it's a combination of moving the tones and decreasing the amplitude of all of those tones. And so the combination of that, even if we're shifting the tones past human hearing, it may still be in a region of dog or cat or bird hearing, but it's so much lower than anything else out there that it's not an issue.
Well, and the important thing for high frequency noise is the atmosphere dissipates it very, very quickly. So I believe it's with 100 to, is it 100 or 200 feet that you have 50 dB of decrease. 50 as high frequency noise is radiated outwards.
And the decibels, everywhere, it's pretty dramatic. It's exponential, right? As you...
Well, high frequency,
It's different because low frequency noise transmits very efficiently.
Okay.
like helicopters.
Yeah,
Low
like
frequency noise.
You'll be miles away from a helicopter and you'll feel that thump, thump, thump in your chest. That's a low frequency sound that carries really well. The high frequency content just is eaten up by the atmosphere. It's just dampened away.
And when you're talking about the military craft, is because you're at these different sound levels, are you able to avoid detectors that have already been put in place for other kinds of drones, or is that all mostly
That's right.
imaging based? And
That's where attenuation helps you. So even if we have this high frequency content, you can design based on the attenuation and what frequencies you're at to know how far away you should be from a sensor, a mic,
okay,
you name it.
and then the vision with the military stuff, it's going to creep some people out, but it's also kind of cool, I think. You're talking about you'll be able to fly a drone super close overhead, and people would be sitting at a table or something like that and just
And
not
they'd never
even
know.
hear it.
We've already done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did
We designed, built, and tested in 9 months
8 months.
what is an ISR, a surveillance demo drone, and it's right over there where we proved that it could fly at 200 feet and less. And we had no ground signature. And actually, a really interesting proof point relating to your other question, dogs, cats, and birds, how they react to it. we would always have a Skydio and a DJI chase drone filming them in flight. Birds left ours alone, they attacked the DJI.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
They were anti-China birds.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
No, and again, these drones are less than 2 pounds. Our demo drone was 55 pounds. You could hear both DJI and Skydio very, very clearly as it would fly over at the same 200-foot altitude, but you couldn't detect at all.
It was really hard to spot the drone, actually. Like when we needed to get photos of it, often the best way to get the photo
helps you. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the chase drone and then you take the photo because it reorients you.
Yeah. So, okay, when you did that test, you're 200 feet for the DoD, spies, that kind of thing. I mean, they would love to put some people are having some kind of chat out in the open or all kinds of uses, I guess. But you'd be able to put any kind of camera on that. And
it's not just camera. I mean, think of being able to tap into even a Bluetooth device
without
at very close
you're getting
proximity.
That close. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, tapping into Wi-Fi networks, all sorts of things that the public will have privacy concerns of, and why this is more for a DoD application.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that is wild. All right, I was just trying to think if there's any other bases to
I think we just created a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists who are going to be wondering what's flying over their head.
Wow.
And actually, that's happened in Crossville. When we moved in, some of the people were, there's these strange aircraft that I think are flying overhead. It must be those Whisper Aero guys. And it's like, no, we're not flying anything.
What was it?
Nothing.
Probably imagination.
Yeah. So just the new kids moved to town. It's a tech company. We don't trust what they're up to.
Yeah, basically.
Actually, they've developed a lot of trust for us, but
at the beginning,
early days,
you've got to earn trust, and fortunately, we've done that with our investors, and we're winning over partners. And
no, but it makes sense. It's a small town, and you guys are like you've got to be one of the big deals in town, I would imagine. Yeah. Okay, that all makes sense. Okay, I feel good about this. I think that was fun. Just want to make sure. Let me do one brain check real quick. Make sure we covered everything. I think we did.